Hey, Al, Kristen, can you just give me like a thumbs up if you can hear fine through the Oh, you're at the band con. Just kidding. Then we won't use you. Maybe April or Rob, is one of you able to just give me like wave your hand at me or something to let me know that you can hear us okay?
I can hear you, chat. Can you hear that?
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. We just wanted to check. We were having some sound issues earlier.
Okay, so let's call the Board of Education meeting to order at 6:33. Present are our student members, John Anderson, Madison Wagner. We have Brian Burdick, Judy Main, Christine Wagner, Lisa Mazzella, myself, Stephanie Mastriani, Tara Hopkins, Alex Karpinski, Jamie Tolixel, and Chet Stefanovich. Is there any public comment? And we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance too.
It may be sometimes if you haven't updated your own Zoom, it'll give you an error when you try and log on with something. So if like I've had that happen to me in the past where it said that the meeting ID didn't work, but in reality it was just I hadn't updated my Zoom recently.
Okay, then do you want to make your motion?
I make a motion to move 10A, B, and C to the conclusion of Ellen's presentation, which would make it 5, B, C, and D.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Why not move all items rather than just split one out?
Bill has to leave at 7:30. We want to make sure he gets his reports in. But we could do the non-lapsing conversation without him.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Can I just make a motion to edit the agenda in the sense that under 11A it should be 11:12 and not 1:12 for the policy review. I just want to make sure that that's properly recorded.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to Ellen Turner's fall sports report. Hi, Ellen. I think you have to turn it on. Oh, it is on. Okay.
Testing. All right. Thank you for having me this evening. And this is always a highlight of it. Actually, people think you go on the Board of Ed, it can't be that fun, but it's fun. I get to talk about my kids and our season and how everything went this fall. So just to start off with, we had 98 student athletes participating in the fall season, which is, you know, we're at like 204 students. So that's almost half of our kids participating in sports in the fall. All of our sports teams qualified for their ECC tournament, which was like probably a first for us as far as having 5 of our teams actually make it into the ECC tournament. And all 5 qualified for the state tournament, which again, I think is the first time in a long time since I've sent all 5 of our teams to the state tournament. So that was pretty exciting. Which was also exciting is we also had 3 division championships Our boys cross country were Division 4 champions. Our girls cross country, Division 4 champions, and our girls soccer team, Division 4 champions. And we hadn't won a championship in 20 years. So our last banner that we hung was 2004, and 2023 was this year. So that was very exciting for our girls, and hopefully that will continue. We have a pretty young team. We have a lot of juniors coming back. We had 22 Wheeler athletes make first team all ECC across the board. So that's pretty incredible for a very small school at Wheeler to have that many first team ECC athletes. We had 3 honorable mentions, and we had 5 sportsmanship winners and 5 scholar athletes also. So that was a big deal. We also had one of our teams, our girls volleyball team, that was selected by our officials board for their sportsmanship. So they got the sportsmanship award, and there's only 2 that go out for the entire state. We got the one for the eastern side, and when I was talking to the gentleman that gave us the award, it was like the first time in a long time that was unanimous. Like every single official that they spoke to voted for Wheeler. So I love those kind of awards because it means our kids are doing it right. And so I was very proud to go get that. I went and got that the day of the tournament, the day of our banquet. I drove to Waterford to get it to make sure I had it for that evening. And again, our season did culminate in a big banquet up at Lake of Isles, where we honored all of our student athletes. We had 210 people in attendance, which is more than we have in our high school. So it was quite an event. And again, it's a lot of fun to honor our kids for all the hard work that they've done throughout the season. As far as our middle school sports, we were able to fill teams. It's getting a little more difficult now with having the 7th and 8th grade only, not having those 6th graders with us. So we were able to form our teams. I think our boys middle school, we were sitting with 12, maybe 13. So praying to God that nobody was going to be absent so that we could get the 11 on the field. And we were good. We were able to do that. Girls soccer, had about 14 girls play. So they weren't really complaining about playing time because we were able to get everybody in, which worked out really well. And then our cross country teams did well also. So I think across the board, we had about 40 middle school kids that were participating. A lot of times it's new for our 7th graders. I'm not quite sure if they want to do it. So towards the middle of the fall, some of them were wishing that they had done it. So I'll make sure that they do it in the fall. I know this is supposed to be a fall cap-off meeting, but I do want to let you know, too, about our winter sports. We have gone from having 3 winter sports to 10. 3 to 10. We have our boys and girls basketball and our cheerleading, which is our normal, what we have, but we have now really expanded our offerings for our student athletes. We have, obviously, our co-op wrestling. We have our co-op boys swim. We have a co-op girls ice hockey, co-op boys ice hockey, and we have a newly formed collaborative with our gymnastics team, which they're going over to NFA. And we were able to actually add boys and girls in for track, which is a lot. I have spent a couple days just doing sports that don't even run through our school. So it's been kind of a learning experience for me. But it's okay because it's well worth it because we can get our kids playing what they want to play. And then as far as our winter middle school sports, they opened up yesterday. So we're doing pretty well. I know our girls basketball team opened up with a win yesterday, so that was pretty exciting. And indoor track will have their first meet Saturday at the U.S. Coast Guard. A lot of big things going on. Very proud. This is one of our ECC All-Stars right here. And one of the young ladies that was on our sportsmanship team right here at your table. So, nice job.
Thank you, Ellen.
Any
Thank you for a
questions?
wonderful fall sports season.
Yeah,
And
it
for all
was.
you do to make sure all of our students can find a place in
Find
the
a
sport,
place.
even if we don't have it.
Yes.
10 is a lot. So
You're welcome.
One question, I'd also echo, great stuff over the years. We had some lean years, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
to
we're
finally
getting
put a
there.
banner
We're
up
back.
on the soccer after 20 years, and we had some great.
I didn't
teams,
know it was
but-
that long, and I took it
Yeah.
down. I was like, oh my God, 2004.
But question is, what turned the tide? Why we were so successful this year?
I think I really see, and you see it more, I think, in a smaller school. We had a group of senior girls. There was 4 of them that, they stayed with it. They played all through youth, and I think they played all through their middle school, high school. And now we have a real bumper group of sophomores. There's like 8 of them They're all friends. They played soccer. They keep playing it. I look back at the years, like when your kids were at school, the kids gravitated to it. Their friends all played. You get that little bumper crop of kids that all play it because, again, they're friends and they want to do it. So we're kind of seeing that. We see that with our boys basketball team, senior heavy, 8 senior boys that have probably played basketball together ever since they were like in preschool, going through the rec program here and then forming their own AAU team that they stuck with. And now we are seeing and we are reaping. I'm taking all credit for it too, by the way. We're reaping the rewards of that. And you see that here and there. And I think our kids, especially our older, I see it with our boys, with our senior group. In our girls group, it's more of our sophomore group right now. As far as like girls soccer goes, there's a big bunch of them, and they're playing some AAU with some teams outside of the season, and that's been a big deal for us, kids. And then a really big thing at Wheeler, and we have to make sure we don't lose this, is not becoming specialized, not having a child that just plays soccer and only soccer. We need those kids to play multiple sports. I understand you play soccer, but I need you to play basketball. I understand that basketball is your sport, but I need you to know how to hit it, be able to catch a softball because our numbers are lean. So we do know. And I say that here as I have John Anderson just standing right next to me. He does do that. He plays soccer, basketball, and baseball. He does all 3. And we need our athletes to do that for us. I mean, maybe he's a great goalie, but he's not a bad basketball player, and he's a pretty good baseball player too. So we need those kids to keep doing that and not specialize in just one sport.
Thanks.
Ellen, can I just ask, is there something we can do to get the 6th graders playing with the middle school at all? Is that just a logistics thing?
It's
or
more of a logistics thing. Their school day ends at, 3:15? Our buses are leaving here at 2:30 for games. That's a problem.
I'm just thinking, I know we have a number of really strong athletes in our 5th grade right now and
That would
going
be
into
something
next
for
year.
you guys to
Yeah,
try to decide what you want to do. Again, I don't think a practice situation would be hard. We don't get onto the practice field till about a little bit before 3:00. They could probably come over and practice with us. They'd miss the first 20 minutes, but they're probably going to know they're going to miss it. But again, when we have games and we play on the 395 corridor, we're going up to Killingly, we're going up to Woodstock, we're going far. So we get out of school at 2:30. Sometimes I even have to get the kids out around 2:15 if it's an advisory day and they're not missing academic time. We'll pull them at 2:15. That's going to be a whole hour of school missed by an elementary child twice a week. So that's the problem right there.
And this was something, Chet, that we had to sort of contend with when we separated the 6th grade out of the middle school. And we spent a lot of time debating, was it appropriate? How would we sort of make up for that? Are we pulling them out of school early? Are they just missing
Yeah.
practice? What does that mean if they're missing that much practice? How long does it take to get a 6th grader who's getting dismissed at 3:10 changed and on the field? Who's making sure they're getting on that field?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah,
And
I
it
remember
seemed
that, yeah.
insurmountable. Christine, you were around for that.
Yeah, we went in detail on that.
Yeah.
Before we made that decision not to have.
And again, like I
school
said,
sport.
before, it's like a bumper thing. So it could be just a situation where we have a group of 7th graders that are just not into athletics. They might be into drama. They might be into other things, and that's where they're going to you're going to see the bump go there, and we're going to see the bump come down, and then hopefully in the next year, we have some more kids that are all soccer players or athletes that want to play something, and the 7th grade too, a lot of them didn't want to play right away, and as we got into the season, I had a lot of kids that we were adding as like we were already like a week and a half in, and you have to get a certain amount of practices in, and and things like that. We were working that out as we were going because again the numbers were light, so I was trying to get them to come in, and a lot of them said, "Hey, I wish I had joined earlier." I said, "Okay, that's great. So next year when you're an 8th grader, make sure you tell the 7th graders that to join, so we can. I want to get Alina. Gotta get Alina. You're so we'll be good. All right. Good.
Any other questions for Ellen?
Yep.
All right.
Next week, if you got anything, if you're not doing anything, we got 4 home games. We're playing Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right before Christmas. If you want to come watch a game,
It's a busy week for you.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you again. And thanks for everything you do. Okay, so that is going to move us on to our facility and finance discussion. So we have Bill to talk to us about the October report.
The October report was presented last month, and all of you should have gotten the questions and answers that that Alex sent out to answer some of the questions about some of the overages. His concern about some of the accounts being over. We are being cautious. Some accounts are running a little higher. We have the under budget issue with electricity, which could have an effect. So after this month and we come up to the next meeting, I'll be in a good position to forecast at the end of the year. Because everything will sort of be going and a lot of the annual stuff will have been paid for. So we will have a better idea, where we're heading towards the end of the year. Obviously, there's some money in grant accounts that recovers some of the items that ran over. We have the tuition, the special ed tuition we collect from sending towns goes directly to us, not to the town. The way it's set up, the town gets the regular ed tuition, and any additional tuition for special education comes directly to the Board of Education. So we pick up some money there, and then and for our special education, then we pick up some money in the excess cost grant. But we won't know those numbers till March and May. So right now we're in the position of really no additional extra spending. When it's not in the budget, you have to sort of wait a little bit and we'll see where we stand. So again, that's where we stand with, overall and in October. I think answered some of the questions are already answered. So unless someone has additional questions about October.
I'll make a motion to approve the October financials. Or to accept, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, we had during the finance committee meeting, some discussions on formatting a little bit. We had some overruns as we just highlighted, and some of that information is going to be, or some of that overrun will be covered by grants that somehow will fold into the financial report, so we get better visibility that we're not in arrears as much as we think we are. So, but aside from that, yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks, Alex. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting this report? Opposed? Okay. You want to talk about the November report?
Okay, so November report also in your packet. And we're trending on most accounts as budgeted. In reviewing the payroll account, all the payroll accounts seem to be on track as we budget them. We have to see there's a couple maternity leaves that are going on coming up, which sometimes affects the budget because you have to pay for the maternity and for the sub. And so we have to look at some of those accounts, make sure that we're close to where we want to be. We have we're looking in special education. April is looking to bring back to here our most expensive outplaced student starting in January. She's already has plans to bring him back a couple hours a day. And if that works, we will bring him back full time. That would save us quite a bit of money, and their parents are looking for them to come back to the district. That's what they want to do. So we have the support of the student's parent. We already brought back one student from another day outplay school. So we're looking to save money there. So now we're going to play we're looking to play the game because when we bring someone back, we have to hire the person, but we're not paying the tuition to send them out. So the money starts moving around. We're not paying the tuition, but we maybe have to hire a paraprofessional, but that's cheaper than the tuition. So that is some of the things that we'll have to be keeping an eye on, and especially when we get into next year's budget. You know, if we can bring back more students, we might be saying, well, we need to hire additional paras or special ed teachers, but we're going to save on contracted services. Currently, contracted services is very expensive. And of course, sending students, besides you have transportation and you have the tuition, and then you might even have additional expenses if they need additional services at the school they're at. So just let you know that this is a big project that we're going to be part of the new budget. And that we're working on in April, I think, is really looking into that and doing a good job of way we can bring students back, which was the grand plan when we set up this alternative education program here. That's the grand plan. It's certainly less expensive to keep students in district, and it, of course, is better for the students if they can keep them in district. So we paid all our out-of-district tuition. We have 3 students going to Ledgerville Ag program, and we paid that tuition. And we have 8 students going to other magnet schools. We have 11 students going out, and we have 22 students coming in. So we're collecting tuition for 22 students, which is a couple less than we had planned. It is what it is, and of course, our principals are trying to, our goal is to have 40 students eventually, 10 in each grade level, from Preston or Long. That's the goal. So if we can increase that for next year, again, that will help with next year's budget. And then we have the infamous electricity.
Bill, before we go to electricity, does anybody have questions about the November report that you're getting right now?
I just to clarify, the tuition though that we pay out comes out of our budget. The tuition coming in does not go into our budget. So,
Correct, except
Right.
the special ed, but if they have special education services,
right,
we get those funds.
those funds come in, but,
Right.
right, all right, just to,
That is
Right,
correct.
it's not one for one.
there's,
Yeah.
right, we're not saying we're
All right.
bringing in 22 and paying for 11.
Right.
We're paying for 11 and we're getting none.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. One does not, one statement does not refer, it mean anything for the next. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Bill?
On November.
Okay, let's talk about Eversource.
Okay, so now it's been a month ago, I got an electric bill for $60,000. And I'm going, this doesn't seem right. So I called Eversource and was trying to get to the bottom of it. And this is for the elementary school. And they said, finally, they figured out, I don't know how they figured out, maybe a technician drove by the school or something, and that the meter was being interpreted incorrectly by the billing department since the construction of the new elementary school. And then they said, well, under state law, we can go back a year. And then I started analyzing what they sent, and I said, no, this doesn't make any sense. And, where'd you come up with these numbers? And I started, so can you, I think it's this, and they think it's that. So in the end, I think they didn't want to deal. So they're only billing us the correct amount starting with September of this year. And they just said, we're not going to bill you for any of the previous months. So basically they went back only 1 month. So we got billed for September and October, but not for July and August. or any time before that.
What kind of difference did that make in the bill?
Well, we, about
50,000?
Yeah, about 50,000.
Nice. Thanks for investigating that.
So, but, as you remember when were doing the budget, I said, oh, look at, we're way under in elementary school electricity, so we can cut that line item. So we did. So now we're about $40,000 short. No, based on estimate for the rest of the year. And as we mentioned in the last meeting, we had 34,000 in money for contracted settlements. We had more, and then we settled with the paras and the custodian. We didn't need all that money, so we do have right off the top 34,000. That's money that's budgeted that has no more. We don't need it because we're all set with the custodians and paras in the budget. So that will mitigate, most of that over. And of course, there's a couple other things where we generally pick up some additional funds that will help to cover that. Unemployment, we put money in for people to collect unemployment. As you remember, as a municipality, if someone collects unemployment, we pay dollar for dollar. It's not like a private company where they pay into a fund. So, but so far, no one, not laying anybody off or anything. So we'll probably have some additional money there too. And that should be able to make up most of it. And so that's where we stand. We came out ahead. We're not being charged with previous things from previous year's budgets. And we remember July and August are high usage months because of air conditioning. And so we're saving there on the elementary school. But again, next year's budget, numbers going back up. So it's another hit to the budget for next year. And also as far as long-term plan here, I made contact with a company that does commercial energy audits. To come in, I haven't got a quote yet, so as long as it's reasonable, because right now, electric meter was being read properly at the elementary school. I talked to the Eversource gas people today. She wasn't sure about the meter at the high school with gas. So now I'm going, well, how do we know what's right and what's wrong? And so I think we need a professional to come in and to analyze the usage in the building. And so currently the high school uses 70,000 kilowatts of electricity per month. It should be? Is that what, we really don't know. And we're mixing the solar with Eversource. Is that being done correctly? So I think we really need an expert to come in and look at how it's all being tied together. And as part of that too, they also give you recommendations on ways to save money, what you can do to cut your electricity costs. And, and I know if you don't, and in commercial utilities, there's a thing called demand charges, which can be pretty expensive. When it comes to our electricity, the delivery charge is almost the same price as the supply charge. A lot of the delivery charge is made up of demand, which is a convoluted way for the utility companies to make more money. So not to get too detailed, but what demand is, they take your highest usage day in electricity and natural gas, whatever it is, and they say, we need to have that available to you. So they bill you that amount. So they bill you $1 amount for that for the next 365 days. That's what the look back period. So if you had one day that it was really cold and someone cranked on all the heat at once and all the gas came in at the same time, you would be paying for that even though normally you don't normally do that. So that's the other things we're working on, because I know it gets sort of complicated and confusing, but I want the board to know that we're coming up with a strategy to look at all these items, because it's a very big ticket item. Between the natural gas and electricity and new schools. When I was in Ledyard, the newest school was the Gales Ferry Elementary School, and they used the most electricity, more than the Ledyard High School, which was an old building. So the new buildings have air handling units. You have to follow the rules for air makeup and all those rules. You have air conditioning. The old schools don't have air conditioning. In old schools, you could open the windows. Can't open the windows. So all those units use up a lot more electricity than the old schools, where you had the boiler and the hot water ran down, and the first room was hot and the last room was cold. So anyway, so I didn't want to get too, so it's a long, and I'm sorry, maybe rambled a little too long, but I want just to make sure that, we're working on it, we're not getting overbilled, and we're going to get someone in here to help us make sure everything is correct.
Yeah, we talked about this during the finance committee meeting, plus we had some questions, obviously, from the October financials to review the utility usage, but I really would support having an audit come in, or somebody come in from the outside and look at everything. We asked as part of one of the questions, what was the previous usage compared to where we are now, just to kind of rationalize the expense and the usage of kilowatt hours and all that stuff. But anyway, I'd love to have an expert come in and make sure we kind of look at the risks that we have for a budget point of view moving forward. Certainly. And any strategies that we could do to kind of reduce the costs, do we have to go to Eversource? Do we go to somebody else, or do we do something else? Fuel cells, I just throw that out there, but that might be an opportunity to also save money and get some grants to pay for some of those other type of
Right, there's no room
utilities.
for another solar array.
Right.
So just so you know, half of the high school power does come from the solar array. Of that 70,000, about 35,000 is on when the sun's up a lot, more obviously in the sunnier months. So the solar power is working and is contributing and is very inexpensive. So don't think that the solar power was a bad idea. It was a very good idea. Whoever put the solar power on the building, it really is helpful.
I'm very confused about the solar power and what it's, giving to our school and the power. I'm confused with a very high electricity bill when we have the panels. I'm trying to understand.
So
I know things are all relative, right? So if I had solar power on my house, it's a smaller house. Obviously, it's a much smaller building, but I mean, it's whatever would be needed for the square foot of my house. And I would expect my electric bill to be next to nothing. And so I'm just wondering, with all the solar panels that are on the school, is there not enough on there?
That's right.
That's what that's just not enough.
It's enough to cover half at the high school.
Oh. Okay.
So it would probably be even higher than what we're seeing now, because the solar's offsetting that.
So with this audit or the expert that you have coming in, you think that it may be decided or concluded down the road that we may need more solar panels?
Could be, yeah. Because when you get solar for your house, you can only get enough solar to cover your bill. You can't get extra. And then what happens, people then add the air conditioning, and they're paying because you can only, so if you're going to put solar on your house, put the air conditioning in first, run it for a year, and then ask for solar because you can put on more panels then.
Can I just ask, originally when you were talking about solar last year and we had looked at the total cost benefit process of it, you had stated that essentially our elementary school electric was nothing because of the amount of solar we had, and the high school paid for about half of it. Now, is that actually just the error by Eversource that demonstrated the idea that the
Yes.
elementary school looked like nothing, but in
Yes.
reality, we only have.
That is correct.
So do we know now what percentage of our electricity at the elementary level we're getting from solar?
Well, I'll have to get a couple months' bills here.
Okay, I was just curious because I remember being amazed by the idea that our elementary school could pull off like neutral in terms of an electric bill, and now I guess that makes a lot more sense.
So your gut feeling was correct. And both buildings are pretty similar in size. You know, the high school isn't any really that much bigger as far as the classroom area and stuff. It's pretty much the same size. Because there are actually more kids in the elementary school.
What I think that's what confused me was I was like, well, but the elementary school is more students. Why?
But the gym makes up,
But there's
the
a gym
gym and
there
the
too.
music, that wing gives a little bit more area to the high school.
Yeah, I guess what's the timing of getting the expert in to present their report?
They're going to be sending me a bid next couple of days,
Okay.
and then we'll see.
Any idea how much that bid will be about?
No idea.
Okay, thanks.
But they responded pretty quickly to my inquiry.
Any other questions for Bill on the Eversource situation?
Can we get some of that information over to the Board of Finance? Because they're incredibly interested on what's going on with that. And I think they're alarmed where they maybe don't need to be so alarmed.
I think we can talk about it at the tri-board meeting.
Okay.
They did not bring that up at the last meeting, although some members may have gotten a hold of our report.
And they did ask about it
and saw that.
the prior time that I met with them. They did ask about it. So that's why I just want to make sure we're keeping them
Yeah.
up to date on that.
We should for sure put that on the tri-board agenda.
Yeah.
So that we can.
So,
talk about it.
because it'd be nice to have that kind of fleshed out before it becomes a
An
budget
issue.
topic.
Mhm.
Yep.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you for taking that extra step to get an audit, so we're sure that we're paying what we should be paying and that there's not some sort of an oversight. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we need, and plus we want to say, well, the auditor said you got to turn off your computers and your smart boards and your refrigerators.
Thank you. So now we can sort of resume our regular agenda. And that brings us to approval of minutes. Does someone want to make a motion? I think we can do those both, right? We do them both at the same time?
I have a question on one of them.
Oh, well then let's take them one at a time. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve September 13th?
I'll make a motion to approve September 13th.
Second.
It's
Discussion?
just general discussion. I noticed in this and the other minutes, when we take a vote, it's not really clear, sometimes it says it carries, but there's really no vote count as far as for, against, or abstain. Is that helpful? It's helpful for me, I guess, to see if we can kind of get some visibility of was it unanimous or not.
I think it's also required.
Okay, I definitely, sometimes I see it, but sometimes it just says it's carried and I don't see any data behind that, so.
Irma, is that something you can look into? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, I noticed on one of the votes, it didn't even say carried, so that's why I brought the subject up. But anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Irma. Any other discussion on September 13th? Okay. All in favor of approving those, say aye. Opposed? Abstain? Brian. September 27th, does anyone want to make a motion to accept that? Approve.
I'll make a motion to accept September 27th.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, on the only just comment I had, I think, which kind of related to the previous discussion was, Item 14A, it was a motion to approve the administrator's contract, but really didn't say carry, didn't say anything. I know I objected to it, so I'd like to see at least my name there.
It did say carried.
Where
Mhm.
it, unless
At
you
the end, it says was seconded by Mr.
That's a motion.
Karpinski, carried.
To adjourn. 14A does not have any outcome.
That's
Oh,
right.
under A, I
Oh.
was looking at out of executive session.
So is it somewhere? Or-
Motion to invite.
I see what you're saying here.
No, the 14A vote does not have
Any outcome.
any outcome.
Mm.
And
So I guess we should amend the minutes to include whatever the outcome was for that
Correct.
vote, so, yeah. So I'll amend my motion to include the data on that particular item on the vote.
Do I have a second on the amended?
I will second the amended.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Thank
So,
you.
so just to address that, only because I recently was reading a piece regarding the approval of minutes in that process. It's not required to, it's actually not even expected to abstain from approval of minutes if you're not present. It's entirely like what you are doing is approving of the idea that the person who has taken the minutes is somebody that you support in the fact that they gave correct minutes. So under Robert's rule, just, it doesn't matter, right? If you abstain, you abstain, but it's not necessary. And moving forward, if we were looking to do large numbers of minutes as a consent agenda, which we've talked about doing at different points, if we didn't have discussion on them, just because we have one person who's not present for one of those meetings, you can still approve the minutes, even though you weren't there.
Oh, good, thank you.
Thanks, Chet.
Good information.
Very
Yep,
helpful.
the only thing I had on that is if I voted for it and, but not being there, I don't know if the details are as accurate as they're presented, I guess, right?
Well, and I've always abstained as well. And it was really just because I was actually reading through regarding consent agendas because we had talked about wanting to start using them a little bit more to speed up the meeting. And multiple people referenced back to, and on Robert's rules itself, it states that abstaining, it also states that we shouldn't be accepting our financial reports because that's actually increasing liability on the board in a situation where we don't need to, and we should only be accepting our audit. But there were a variety of things in that piece of things when I was looking back through it. But one of the big one, in terms of the abstaining, it was just to be able to try and do a consent agenda if we wanted to be able to do large numbers of minutes. And the idea that you were not stating that all of the details in the minutes were correct by having attended the meeting, but rather that you accept the idea that the minutes were taken correctly and that process was done well.
I can accept that.
And I'm happy, I can forward it on to the board if people are
So we
interested.
don't approve the minutes, we accept them.
So
I
again,
think we're
this is,
supposed to.
this
approve
is-
I think we
all of them.
approve minutes, yeah.
no. You don't abstain. You approve, but you can approve whether or not you attended the meeting or not.
Yeah, I thought I heard you say accept. Sorry, that's why I'm confused. All right, thanks.
Oh, that was for the financials. We're not even supposed to accept them. Approval or acceptance is technically not correct.
We certainly can look into that further. Any other discussion on minutes? Excellent. Troy, do you want to present your superintendent's report?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I can go through this pretty quickly. It's not that long. We wanted staffing on my report each time, so I have a few things to report on that. We did hire a new part-time nurse that we needed because we have to supply the Christian Academy with nursing services. It's just something we're obligated to do. And so that person is going to start right after the December break. We are in the need of paraprofessionals. We're down a few, but we just hired one who's starting tomorrow. We have an applicant that just came in as well, so we'll see if that one is a fit. We are, after the December break, reassigning a first grade teacher who is certified to serve as a school counselor at Wheeler for the remainder of the school year. And we have an internal certified paraprofessional. The person is certified as a elementary school teacher who has been working with that grade of students, knows those teachers, knows those students, who's agreed to assume the role of first grade teacher for the remainder of the year. So those moves are all working out. I did attend the State Council for Military Children meeting on November 30th. It was very educational, and I plan on attending those groups again. The superintendents do that and, talk about issues regarding military children. If they move into town, out of town, they have special rights, and it's good to keep up to speed on that. Both Principal St. Germain and Principal Salino attended the NEASC annual conference in Boston last week. And I think from that, I think, got that we are in really good shape regarding our NEASC work. And so they're feeling really good about that. I have a meeting scheduled on January 10th with a group of administrators and teachers with ACES International. They're an organization that can assist us with developing global partners for international students who would pay tuition. Not sure if that goes right to the town too, probably. But it's international, teacher exchanges, project partnerships. So they're going to come and see if there's a way that they can work with us. They'll do a lot of that legwork, like they'll train and find host families for kids. And it's a great way if we can get some more international kids to spend some time as students at Wheeler. It just enriches our whole student body. And the teacher exchange aspect, I'm really excited about that. And I've had some experience with that in the past, not through ACES, but it's very awesome professional development for a teacher to go co-teach in another country for a few weeks, or have someone come here and do it. And again, it's very enriching for everybody, our whole educational community. Last week, I led a collaborative conference for NEASC at Westport Middle High School in Massachusetts. I had a committee, 4 people on my committee. They're all from Massachusetts, and I think we did some good work for the school. I need to finish editing the report and get it to the NEASC editor by Monday. So I'm doing a lot of cutting and pasting right now and fine-tuning that. So, but basically what happens is they take that information and they use it to develop a more detailed school improvement plan that then they will follow through with. So we help them identify the areas to work on that, they think they should work on. And in some cases, we found a different area that they should work on as well. And we kind of help them connect the dots. And it's helpful to an outside set of eyes coming in and looking at your school. Sometimes when you're in the midst of it yourself, you don't really see everything clearly. So that's the process. And we're scheduled to have that here fall of 25, have a collaborative conference district-wide for us. So we go through the process. Because it's such a significant thing, I'm presenting to the Learn Board of Directors tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And I decided to bring Kim Haggerty with me, curriculum coordinator, because we're going to talk about the benefits of NEASC district accreditation and the whole process, how it works. And it's so wrapped into the curriculum work that Kim's going to be really helpful talking about the vision of the graduate and the aligned curriculum, K to 12, and all the benefits of that. And given that we're the first in Connecticut to be a candidate for district NEASC accreditation, I think Learn Board might be interested in hearing about that. So we're going to be doing that. School construction audit. We're working with the town. We've had a meeting with Bob and Susan, the first selectman and bookkeeper, and they've been really helpful. It's really a town project, but the way this works is they communicate to the superintendent of school. So I have to kind of be the head person to coordinate that, but we are getting a whole lot of help from the town on this. So we're moving forward with that. We hope to give them all the information they need for this roof project by next week. And then we got to work on a lot more information they want for Wheeler and the elementary school. It's like overwhelming, the amount of documents, which the town has a lot of electronically, so it's great. So, but it's just organizing that in a way that makes it easier for the auditors when they come the last week of January in person to do the audit. All right, so, and they said to me, yeah, that week would work. I just haven't scheduled the day and the time and all that, but there might be things when they come here that we have to chase down and figure out, you know. So, and lastly on here, I just want to say, because I had sent you guys an email update about community use of buildings. And I've been looking at that really closely. And also in doing that, realized that we have already a couple of established groups that have been using the buildings before 4 o'clock. And I had proposed, oh, we just move everybody to 4 o'clock, no interference with school activities. But there were a few that are already figured out a way to function before 4 o'clock and not interfere with school activities. So then I thought that, well, it might be that any new group that proposes to come in, there may be a way to work with them to figure out how they could also do that and function and start before 4 o'clock and not interfere with school activities. So I've talked to Mr. Salino about this, about how those groups do that. And I think we can offer any newer or new groups, if you do this and this and don't do that or that, then it could work. And if you meet here, you know, and it won't interfere. But at some point, if we continue to get more and more requests, it might be hard to accommodate, and we may have to revisit it. But I think it will allow some consistency for newer things to come in, even like, say, the after-school program that is maybe run by not the Board of Ed or the town rec even, but maybe a different organization, and we would probably want them to start before 4 o'clock, you know, so I think it's going to kind of work out, and I think it'll be fine. So that's that. You know, I've talked to several people along the way in coming to this point, and that's been helpful as well.
Just wondering how the coffee chats are going.
Okay, so I have a small crowd that attends, and I don't know always, but then I'm like, oh wow, hey, someone's coming, because I thought I was going to be chatting with myself, but so it actually is picked up. I think the last time I had like 3 people. Yeah. And actually maybe 4, because I think I broke it up in the times, and I had like a 7:30 and an 8:30 time, and I think I had 1 person the first, and then 3 person the second, or something like that. So I had scheduled those 3. I haven't scheduled any more yet, but I got to think about that and think about maybe there's a different way to do it. Maybe I can like go to people instead of them coming to me somehow. Anyway, this is works in progress. I'm open to ideas how to like better connect with the community, better connect with parents, make myself available. So.
Well, I was thinking that during a basketball game or a lunch period, to have a chair and a desk and available to students along with parents or teachers, or I guess if that's what you're trying to get accomplished, to get better communication to the superintendent, but I just kind of threw that out there.
Yeah, and I actually mentioned in my article for the quarterly, which I have to submit tomorrow, I actually mentioned something about, we'll see at some school events, and please feel free to come up and have a conversation.
I kind of love the idea of you being like the meme where you're just at a table with like the sign in front of you that's like, I'm the superintendent, convince me to like whatever it might be. No, I think it's great, and I appreciate you reaching out, even if it may be frustrating that there's not a huge group of people. I think that it's a very visible sign to have you willing to run them and to have that accessibility to the public. So whether or not you get 100 people or 3 people, I think having that as an option is something that's saying something to the town as a whole. Hey, look, I want you to come to me if you have these difficulties, and please come
Yeah,
talk.
and I think we can advertise it more as well. John, do you want to contribute to my answer?
Before he speaks, there is a wonderful concert at the elementary school tomorrow night at 5:30. That would be a great networking for you.
John Gatchon, I would just like to say, I think you make yourself very available to people. I know I've come in on several occasions and you're willing to make time for anybody that comes in, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Every night at 5:30, you should be available, Troy.
Everybody?
Every night at 5:30 and then again at 7:30. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No home life.
Is that Saturday and Sunday as well?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Troy, I think the very idea that you're at the same spot consistently, and there may be times initially, maybe the first several months, that maybe nobody comes, maybe one or two people come, but that's where it's gonna grow. If you've had 3 or 4 people, those 3 or 4 people are gonna tell 3 or 4 people what a great conversation they had with the superintendent. And I think that you'll find as time moves on that, that your attendance at these things will grow. And I'm sure it's just the opportunity itself, I'm sure, is appreciated.
So I should stick with it.
Hmm?
I should
I-
stick with it.
In my opinion, I would stick with it a little longer and
Okay.
not get too
It
discouraged.
it is good. I mean, I get some good information.
Is it good
from
coffee?
people and- Oh, yeah, it's, Box of Joe.
Um, I did have, a comment about, the facilities usage, before 4 o'clock. I never thought that it should be black and white anyway, and, over the years, when I had the kids in elementary school, whenever I was part of a group or whatever that needed to use the school facilities for something, whether it was as a Girl Scout leader or a PTO event or whatever, we went right to the central office and filled out a use of facilities form. And Irma, I'm sure you have an Outlook calendar there of anything that's going on at the school, faculty related or things that are already scheduled. School functions are always priority. And then I believe it's nonprofit and then community, like their town. Yeah, I know that, and I don't, it's been years, so I don't remember exactly what the priority list was, but it was there. So you
It's-
do have an opportunity
Yeah.
always, all these years.
It's
But it was also, the form is to prevent any disruption. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
'Cause-
and that's what I have been following the policy, 3515.
Uh-huh.
And we have been following that, and that, there's a statement in there that says that, the activities, community use will be allowed as long as such use does not interfere with school activities. So if we could figure out how they cannot interfere, then we could allow them, but if
Right,
we
I mean,
can't figure that out.
And
then-
you can't allow everybody.
No,
And I'm not saying
Right.
a specific group, I'm just saying there's not enough space and time to
Right.
allow everybody. If 100
right.
people wanted to
right,
come and
we
use the
could say
same
we
date.
no longer have space available,
Right.
I mean, at some point.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I
Yeah.
think you guys have been doing it all along.
Yeah.
That's just my comment.
Okay, thanks.
And with regards to paraprofessionals, we're down a few. Is there a certain grade level and is there concern that, that
It-
teachers aren't getting the help they need with students in?
That we've been
Number one.
managing, we've been, moving staff here and here to cover all student needs, and so we've been meeting student needs. But it's a challenge, when if you have like some illness in the staff and that type of thing, but we're hopeful now that we just hired someone starting tomorrow, and we have another applicant. We're hopeful that things will get better.
Can I ask you just a quick staffing question as well? Can you give me an idea or give us an idea of where we are with guidance? Do you have, I know that's kind of off topic.
So, as I said, with the staffing, what we're doing is we're moving a teacher into a school counselor role
Right.
there, so that will give us 2 full-time school counselors in the guidance department, for the rest of the year.
I guess I'm more
Is that-
specific on the high school guidance.
That's what I'm talking about, high school
Okay.
guidance department. There'll be 2 full-time people starting January 2nd.
Okay, so I'm just curious
School-
about,
School counselor is a guidance counselor,
all right, so I guess I'm more specific on like college prep, that kind of stuff. First round of applications were due 11/15. Where are we at with those types of guidance situations?
the high school administration is on it and actually chipping in to get that work done. So,
Troy, it's Kristen. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Is it okay if I chime in? I figured I'd help answer if that's okay.
I love that you just chimed in. Thank you.
Yeah, so our original counselor did return in November and actually was a part of all of the November 15th, December 1st, December 15th deadlines, as well as myself. We did a lot of work with our senior class. We continue to. Now we're moving into the scholarship phase with many who are already starting to come down. So having this staff member she is a school counselor and she's coming over starting in January will only just increase those options for students. So we're in a really good place right now. I feel like we've done a really good job with what we were kind of left with, but I would say the kids are getting a lot of individual attention and time between myself, Jamie, and our new counselor who's stepping in. She has already been coming, so.
okay, thank you. I was just wondering where we were at with those 2 positions, so thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments for Troy? Okay, thank you. So my report is mostly just sort of housekeeping stuff. Troy and I have set weekly meetings, Wednesdays at 1. So I think that will be what we stick with for a while. Given that both Mike Anderson on the Board of Finance and myself are new chairs, we're going to start meeting 1 time a month with Bob Carlson, at least through the budget season, to keep things moving, the stuff that we talk about in meetings, to make sure that everybody's getting what they need, and that we're not finding out at the next meeting that we maybe haven't fulfilled something. So our first meeting is on January 23rd. I'm still working to schedule the new member meeting with Judy. We're just trying to get our schedules lined up. I have a request from Bob Carlson in regards to the Connecticut. It's the Cable Television Advisory Council of Southeastern Connecticut. They would love to have a Board of Education member attend and be part of their board. Laura Tillinghast sits on there already from North Stonington. In fact, I think she is the treasurer, but they're looking for a Board of Ed member. I have a packet of information in case anyone's interested and wants to check it out. Anyone? Okay, well, if anyone changes their mind, just shoot me an email. The tri-board is scheduled for 12/19. I apologize to Christine and Alex. I know that is not a date that you can make. But Bob is requesting that our agenda be in soon. And so Troy and I have work to put together an agenda. But if anybody has specific items that they want on the agenda, Christine, I'm going to add the Eversource issue. If you could send those to me by the middle of the day on Friday, I can make sure that they get on the agenda. I'd like to send it out to Bob at the end of the day, Friday. And because it is our meeting, we have to provide the note taker. Jamie, would you like to take the notes? Thank you so much.
Will you be putting the non-lapsing on that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
That is on there as well.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Can I just confirm that's a Tuesday?
Oh, I'm happy. Yes.
It's a Tuesday at 6.
At
Okay.
6 p.m. Would it be helpful if I send out to everyone what we have on there so far, and then you can take a peek and say like, hey, we should definitely add this? Oh, I could do that in the morning. I attended the Board of Finance meeting last Wednesday to follow up on some questions they had. Christina had started the conversation with them. Bill had provided us with a list of all of the students that we send out. How many students, where are they going, and how much does it cost? We started with sort of a general list. They asked for a few more specifics. We had that list on the 6th. And then they asked for even more specific things. They also talked a lot about our enrollment. How much space do we have for students? I know that we're aiming at 40 for our sort of tuitioning in students, but they want to know what's our capacity for students in general. They also had some questions as it relates to the cost per student in North Stonington. Of course, that is something that has been asked for years. And depending on where you look and what you consider, that number changes. And so they actually have a few different iterations of what they'd like to know. So Troy and Bill will get all of my questions, and I hope to get that to them well in advance of our budget talks. I think it's just helpful if we're all speaking the same language, and it's all information that's out there. And actually, I found it helpful for me to look at that chart. And so once I think we get all the charts and all the ways that we should have it, I'm going to send it out to everyone, because I think it's just helpful if you're in the community and people are asking questions like that you know too. I was actually surprised. I learned last week that while we pay for a number of outplacements, we don't pay for tech schools, but we are obligated to transport to tech schools, and we're not obligated to transport to magnet schools, but we do pay for them. So just some interesting stuff that might be helpful for us all to understand. We had a town meeting. Thank you to those members that attended. A special thank you for Christine for standing up with some facts in an email. That was incredibly helpful. So the town had to approve the use of the town's money for the STEEP grant, right? Because we're sort of all together in that STEEP grant. The conversation was way more detailed than I anticipated it would be. They wanted details of our project, and it was hard to explain that we weren't actually we don't have details of the project because we don't have a project. This is just the first step in us moving forward, and that the board had committed to the idea that we would do this work on the fields. And we were moving forward with that idea when the idea of the STEEP grant came to sort of be in front of us, and we said, hey, here's an opportunity to do this project that we were already going to do at 20% of the cost. It seemed very simple, but I understand that it did not translate to sort of the people that were there in that room that night. So a good lesson in thinking about the ways that we are communicating with the town. And Troy and I are going to talk more about a communication plan moving forward, and then we're going to put it on the agenda so that we can all talk about it. And then the final thing on my report is just something for us to think about, and I think we're going to put it on the next agenda. The way that we're currently doing financials seems to be a little confusing to some people, and looks a little odd. So we have this 5:45 meeting. It's the finance committee. We're talking about financials, sort of doing that deep dive. We don't have it on Zoom. Do we want to do it differently? Is that working for the board? As we approach budget season, how do we want to handle it? Bill put together a really great sort of schedule that matches up with the town's budget schedule for the finance committee. But I think we have to decide what work we want to do in that committee and what work we want done as a full board. So we can put it on the first meeting in January's agenda. I just want people to start thinking about ideas and how they'd like to see that play out and their concerns. Any questions for me?
I have a couple.
Sure.
The DERGs have been redrawn. And so I'm just curious if that's affected us in North Stonington, and if our DERG has changed significantly. I didn't dig into it too deep. I just saw some communications that those have been redrawn.
I didn't get any communications that said they were redrawn, but I
Okay.
certainly will look into it.
Okay. And then I'm wondering for the irrigation, just knowing kind of what the questions were and stuff, if we maybe put together some kind of a timeline of where we are how we started, where we are, what's next, what our next steps are. I think because it's such a large expense, steep grant or not, people are really curious how we got to where we are and kind of where we're at next. So even if we had that on the webpage maybe or something
I think
about
it's
that.
really helpful because it seemed like the idea was we just popped up one day and said, hey, let's irrigate the fields.
Yeah,
but
we'll
the-
take
But
200,000.
the reality is
Yeah.
it's been on agendas and we've been talking about this for so long, but we're not communicating that. So I think that's a great idea as sort of just a fact sheet. Like, where did this come from? Where are the places that you can see if you want to watch the conversation? Where are those places that you can see it? It became really clear to me that like what I thought was so wonderful, like who wouldn't want to approve this expenditure? It's so great. There were a lot of questions, and a lot of questions about our process.
Right.
So I think that's a great idea.
Just so that people kind of know we're still working through it and we're not there yet. So. And that was
Any
it.
other ones? All right, thank you. That brings us to our student reports.
Okay, so starting with high school, and starting with National Honor Society, Mrs. Colley is offering a meeting to junior applicants where senior students in the National Honor Society will be there and offer help on anything with their application. So it's kind of a way for the junior applicants to meet and get closer with the seniors already in and who already kind of know how the application project works. So I think that's a really great thing. And also for NHS, there's a blood drive at the Grace Fellowship Church on December 27th. Many seniors have already started their projects and have their ideas ready to go for National Honor Society. Moving on to Give Back Club, they have helped with organizing the Give Back closets and new donations when they come in and organizing the clothes and anything else that they may receive over the holiday season. They went to the Charleston Food Pantry to create bags for Thanksgiving meals. There was a Christmas drive for a 5-year-old girl within the community, getting her presents, clothing, anything she might need over the holiday. And during February, they'll be helping with a special needs prom called Night to Shine. And apparently that's like a really great program that they're there to help and support. And then this March, there will be another trip to Travis Mills to be a part of the breakfast with the Vietnam veterans. For student government next week, there's a Winter Spirit Week. The days are Red and Green Day, Winter Holiday versus Warm Holiday, Ugly Sweater Day, Wheeler Wonderland, and Pajama Day on our half day next Friday. After the holiday break, student government is going to be discussing some concerns such as like finding more outside time and ways that the kids can have more outside time during the day and just get some fresh air and more club participation. Every advisory is also participating in a door decorating contest for our social civic expectations. And each door should have a winter theme and show our 4 R's, which are respect, responsibility, and resilience. The winners get a pizza party next Friday, and the judging is next Thursday. For band, the band concert is actually happening tonight, and I heard it should be really good. The chorus concert went really well with 86 students, and it was accompanied by piano and percussion. It ended with all 86 students singing on stage together, and there will be an open mic on December 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Wheeler Library. For drama, Mr. Mandolia took over the drama club for Miss Tavares, and the play is going to be Clue this year. For clubs, this is mainly middle school, but high school as well. Wheeler offers clubs to choose from at the beginning of each week for advisory and or club time. Teachers choose different activities to run for the middle school or high school. Many of those clubs include flag football, basketball, fishing, and crocheting. And lastly, for the mathletes team, they've had 3 meets so far. This is the highest involvement yet this year that they've seen. So Mr. Grande is really excited about that. And they have freshmen, juniors, and seniors. And it's really great to have those younger kids and having the underclassmen and the freshmen and the sophomores there. So then they kind of know what they're getting and doing, know what can happen. So then next year they're like ready to go. So overall, it's been really good so far.
And then also for the elementary school, the second trimester began on the 4th and report cards were already sent out yesterday. For grades K, 1, and 2, they still have their regular field trips with the Wheeler Library. 5th grade finished their EB program, and then 6th grade had a visit with Pfizer today, and is also almost finished with their DARE program, which should end sometime in January. A few weeks ago, there was a parent advisory meeting focusing on math, where they discussed how there are new ways to teach math and learn rather than just how the parents had learned before. The PTO holiday sale was last week, and then the book fair is this week as well. Last Friday was the talent show, and there were 18 acts and around 21 kids involved. There were a bunch of different talents such as artists, singers, people doing karate, gymnastics, music, and even ventriloquists. They even performed that same talent show for students to watch as well. The chorus concert is at 5:30 tomorrow and features bucket drums. Thank you.
Thank you both, and I appreciate you being patient. I know we bumped Bill in front of you, so it's getting close to 8 o'clock. If you want to go, please feel free. But thank you for your contribution. We're so close. So we're at non-lapsing. So I know that we have to keep this on our agenda in general, but an email from Jamie a couple of weeks ago sort of brought some specific things up for me, and that was in regards to Jamie had mentioned whatever happened to the stage lights that we had discussed for drama. And then I thought, geez, I don't know what happened to those stage lights because I remember talking about them. But Troy was able to find out and was able to pull the paperwork that we do you wanna hand it out? Yeah. It was on the end of the year expenditure list. And so in an effort not to let that list go, we thought we could revisit it tonight with some of Troy's recommendations.
So, yeah, it's actually, when you get the list, it's the first item on the list for end of the year expenditures that we looked at, and we decided only to get the reading program and not to get the other stuff. Just to point out, we did get the second to last item, the CNC router for tech ed. We were able to get that through the tech ed money. I think that we got to somehow, it might have been through non-lapsing, it would be on here if we did, because I think you had approved some money for that program, right? So, yeah. So, and recently, not only, so we have this request, and by the way, these were, priority items if we had money left at the end of the year, Board of Ed money, right? So, now that we're like, 6 months after that, we have potentially other priorities, or some of these might still be. I do think the stage lights for the drama productions, which would also help the musical productions. It's just a lighting, whoever's using the stage, the talent show, it could benefit a lot of students by having this type of stage lighting. And this is what was proposed. I have it right here. And it's the exact number, 2,804.71. I think the cost might be a little higher now because this was looked at, 6 months ago. So I might propose to the board that you approve a higher number to cover it, say like up to 3,200. I'm just making that up. I think it probably would cover it. And maybe if we don't spend it all, we don't spend it all, but you approve it so it covers it. I just got a interesting request today, which would also support the arts. And I know the board had talked about really being dedicated to supporting the arts. And we have our music program is really growing and improving. And so I got this request for some keyboards, 12 keyboards at $180 each. 179.99 actually is the exact figure. I just rounded up. And then there's a little bit of shipping as well. So that there, we would, if we, approved like $2,800 for that, it would cover it with the shipping. It might be, we didn't spend the whole 2,800, but it would cover that. So, I'm in support. I hope the board considers, purchasing through the non-lapsing account, both the lighting for the elementary school stage for 3,200, up to 3,200, and then these 12 full-size 61 keyboards that will help with music instruction at Wheeler for 28 up to 2,800.
What about the kiln and the clay and stuff? I mean, we
I
talked
haven't
about-
had any recent discussions about that.
Okay.
So I think we could revisit that after I have those discussions, possibly.
Can I ask, is the keyboards used for general music classes, for music theory classes,
Yeah.
for what are we?
I believe they'd be used for a variety of classes. I think you're right about the general music. I think they may be used in even chorus classes at times. It's a nice resource to have. And I think they'd be used in a variety of classes and actually independent, study type situations as well.
And the number for that, like 2,400 when you include shipping, is that?
2,800. you
I
said.
2,800.
suggested 28 to cover it. I think really when I did it, I went to order it, not order it, just kind of go through the website and saying, I'm checking out as a guest and here's the shipping, and it came to like close to 24. But I don't really know when you really do it and they're gonna charge us more. It was it's just an estimate when you do it that way.
So just to get it on the table, I would make a motion to approve. I'm gonna go with up to 3,500 for lighting for drama productions, and up to 2,800 for keyboards out of the non-lapsing account.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just say the lighting, I think we were ready to do that and only put it off because we thought it was possibly coming from a different spot. So like I'm 100% on board getting the lighting in for that. And I think that the idea that we have people coming and asking for things that will improve instruction out of the non-lapsing, like the music department is doing, is exactly the type of thing that we have been asking for and wanting to get from our faculty. So I think that supporting those aspects so that more teachers see, hey, if we have innovative things that we want to do or things we want to move forward with, that the board will support that. So
I just had a question on the sign. Which sign is rotted?
Oh, there's a motion on the floor though.
Well, it's for discussion though, right? I know there's a motion for those two, so we just vote on those two and that's it? Is that-
Those
Well, I
are the
think
two.
we can have a discussion on those two items, and then we can return to the list.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Christine, do you have a comment about this? Sorry. It does sound like Troy. I feel like a teacher calling on you. Troy, it does sound like these are the things that are in the spirit of why we got so excited about the non-lapsing account. I think I said to you earlier today, it feels better than bird damage to the roof. Like this feels really nice. And these are things that directly impact the quality of the experience that our students have. So I think they're great.
Agreed.
I mean, maybe.
I would also be interested in hearing back maybe at the next meeting about replacement of the old kiln and the art pug mill for clay. The art program is just so fantastic over there. If you ever been to an art show, I would really like to, keep them up to date with equipment.
I will
If
check into
that's
that,
what they
those
need.
two items, and see if there's the need right now.
I just also want to thank you both for being on top of that and looking into the lighting so quickly. So thank you.
So do we want to have a vote on these two items? All in favor of the 3,500 for lighting and the 2,800 for keyboards? Any opposed? Same? Wonderful. So I think that we could talk, you want to talk a little about the sign?
Sorry, before we move on, can we just make sure that Kelly Gonzalez knows that she can go ahead and order this so that, because I know their production is coming up
Yeah.
quickly. Okay, thank you.
Troy, do you want to tell us about any of these other items on here?
So the Wheeler sign, that was something that, we know is the one that is, I guess, at what's mostly the exit, across the street right from this building. It's maroon sign, and if you look at some of the supports, they're very worn. Looks like there's some rotting going on. They really need replacement more than just a coat of paint. And so, but it was donated by a class too, so, there's that angle there. But we had a quote to reproduce it, and that's what that was, and we just figured, well, it's still standing, I mean, looks all right, so that's what that is.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it looks all right or if it looks something that we should take down. If it doesn't
Well-
present the school well, I guess.
Yeah, right, I mean, it's not, it's worn, it has a very worn look.
I guess, Troy, on any of these items, while they've been requested by people within the school, the final request, I would hope you can make that decision if those are things that you actually want to move forward to us. Like if you're going, I'm kind of okay with the sign, even though somebody else asked for it.
Yeah.
If you just want to bring forward to us the things that you think are the need.
Yeah, well,
After kind
I
of
could do that.
vetting
Next
that.
meeting, I could talk to some people and kind of figure out what, are these things still priority items? So like the reset, the benches, honestly, I think we should do that. Because the benches, they're very crooked, the ones in the front of the school, and it looks bad. I mean, they should be level and usable, they're nice stone benches. I mean, we should take advantage of it, and I think it would really, spruce up the look of the front of the school. And, but I will talk to all the people involved in this and then kind of get some current opinion about, how, the need is for all these things.
Thank you for solving the mystery of what list the lights were on.
Yeah, no
That
problem.
was helpful. And then I think that we need to revisit the playground. Jamie, did you have some stuff you wanted to talk about? in regards
Yeah, I
to-
just wanted to follow up because in the last meeting, we kind of talked about some of the missing pieces and we had approved, I believe, $70,000 from the non-lapsing. And so I just wanted to know like where the status of the other items, because it was unclear to me what was going on with that.
Yeah, I'm not fully prepared to answer that right now, on the spot. But however, I have an email on my desk about this. And there was something about, we took an item off. It's actually an email, I think, from you that said, oh, we're gonna take this item off and not get that. So maybe I can just send that to you to remind you what that was, but then there's some other components, not just one thing.
So
Right.
we had talked about like getting a divider between the swing sets, remember, like from the slide, and we had looked at I believe it was like a surfboard that we were going to add, and then there was another piece
Mhm.
that was going to go to the pre-K.
Yeah, I think the surfboard was taken off of the order by request.
Not by me.
I think so. But that's why I'm not prepared to really have this conversation, because I have an email on my desk
Okay.
with some highlights, and I'm thinking there's an email that said we're taking this piece off, and I think it may have been the surfboard.
Okay,
but,
so yeah, maybe
no,
we
no,
could
100%.
we could just revisit, maybe
Yeah.
even just like a tally to see like
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we are
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
the 70,000 and the install and all of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
things.
Well, and I believe we have where we are in terms of what money's left on this non-lapsing account.
But of the
but-
70,000 specifically that we approved,
So it does look like
Is it
it's,
not?
it's, even if you take the installation and add it to what was purchased, we're pretty far under
Yeah,
the 70,000, and I don't know a surfboard from a wobbly thing, but,
oh,
I know
so-
that we
very
approved
cheap.
a lot.
So
yeah.
even if we had decided not to get it at the time, what we're saying is maybe we should get it now if we have the money.
I think there was some alternates that were there, and I think
Okay.
we were going with some other options, but I think they somehow got missed.
That could be.
And then just kind of along the same lines, like I'm gonna constantly bug you about the wood chips because they are not to my satisfaction. So if like, is there a possibility to have like, what is the cost that was spent this year on the wood chips?
Yeah.
And this is why I kind of really pushed to have that line item in our budget, that $5,000 was going for the wood chips. Because I'm a little concerned that it's going to become a problem.
Right. So what I can tell you is we had playground medic come out and assess the safety of the entire playground. And they were fine with the amount of wood chips. They were fine with the location and height of all the equipment, in terms of there being no safety issues. And we're not getting that from the school, about like, what things to be moved or any safety issues as well. So, maybe I can bring the report from Playground Medic next time, and then also the details of what we actually ordered, what we've spent, and what's left from the 70,000. So maybe maybe we put on the agenda and I come with a report on playground. for the next
And I,
meeting.
and I do have the list here of what we had kind of discussed.
Oh, okay, great.
So, we needed to install the new bus, a beam addressing the swing fall zone, the funny bone in the red zone, fix the swing issue. There was the, add alternate was the balance beam instead of the surfboard.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Surfboard, that's it. Surfboard.
And then the buckabout doesn't buck.
What do we say about the surfboard?
That we were doing the balance beam as an add alternate instead of the
Instead
surfboard.
of- okay,
Yep.
Okay.
The buckabout doesn't buck. We were gonna, Chet said he tested it.
Do not believe it bucks. We should double check. You should-
That was the swirly thing.
Oh, that's right.
He was swirling and not
You said
bucking
you
for the
weren't
record.
bucking. And then yeah, so that was that strata bouncing balance beam
Okay.
was the add alternate in there. So those are just the items that I have
Okay,
on
and was
here.
there the squiggle in the pre-K? It was supposed to go in like in the new area by the swing. Like if we had bumped out the swing, we were
The
gonna-
cog hill? No.
No, because the Cog Hill is the name of the main
All right.
thing there. It was a squiggle balance beam
Yeah.
piece that was supposed to go in there.
Is that the sensory wave?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't have that we were gonna do the sensory wave unless it was already there.
I think it was part of the whole package of my total.
Okay.
But yeah, it might have gotten over. There were many pieces. so
Okay,
I
yep, the
under-
sensory wave is on here for 6,200,
Yes.
so, and I get what you're saying about the wood chips, but keep in mind the cost of, we're not just gonna spend 5,000 to spend 5,000. If the cost of wood chips have gone down and we can get the same amount that's needed for less money. So it's not really about that number as much as it's how much wood chips do we need,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, I guess my concern is more of like, we kind of have always talked about putting a fresh layer everywhere, regardless of whether or not the height, just because by March, it all compacts down and then we start getting bug infestations. And so having that kind of fresh top layer, while it might not make 5,000, but I'm not quite sure that we were even close in this latest rendition.
So we'll follow up on the playground stuff. Any other non-lapsing discussion?
Just really, it's gonna be a big deal when it comes to budget. So I'm sad that I won't be there on Tuesday, but I think we really, really, really need to all come to the same place with the Board of Finance as to what that account is for. And if we can get them to understand and agree with our feeling about what it's for, then I think we can put that to rest and move forward with the budget. So I'm hopeful that you can have some really good discussion.
So the positive thing is that, based on their meeting from 2 weeks prior to the 6th, there were a lot of non-lapsing questions, including a request from a member to get a copy of the memo, the memo of understanding between our board and theirs regarding the non-lapsing account. And so I came to the meeting on the 6th, ready to talk about the non-lapsing. But after everyone reviewed the information, they didn't want to talk about the non-lapsing. They said they were comfortable with the information they had. So I'm hopeful that all the conversations that you had with them about what we're buying and why we're buying it, and the breakdown that you had provided about what have we spent that maybe we shouldn't have had to fix things in the building. And I think those discussions have maybe started to take hold with them. And I love that we just approved 2 additional items that will directly benefit the education that our kids are getting. And it's really enriching that. And, but Christine, I think you're right. We have to continue to tell that story about what the account is. We are not confused about it. We're not using it. I don't think we're recklessly using it. So we just have to keep talking about it. And I think eventually people will understand. But I was glad that nobody had any questions or concerns about our non-lapsing count on the meeting, at the meeting on the 6th.
And if you'd like, I can, do you have the memorandum? Because I have,
do.
okay,
I
because I
do.
have it if you need it.
Yes, when they requested it, I pulled it as well. Yeah. Okay, so if we are done with non-lapsing, we will move on to the policy and advocacy discussion. Chet had requested that we take a look at these 2 policies, 1112 and 4111.
I don't think 4111 was my request. I was actually confused why it was on there. I assumed that that was brought up by somebody else.
Maybe that was Troy's request.
That one's probably the 4111, that's me.
Okay, I was gonna say I did that one was not
Yeah.
me.
And that's me just following up on, because I think the board had requested me to take a look at the recruitment regulation, because it was, remember when we hired the director of student services and I brought her here for a meet and greet and we included quite a.
Oh, the
like,
fact that we
and I
thought
say
that
I'm
was-
just
okay.
following what's written down, so I rewrote it, and that's what that is.
Okay, thank you. I saw it and I was kind of like, all right, I'm gonna
Yeah.
assume somebody else will speak to that when we get to the meeting because
Yeah,
I have
and
no
I have-
idea what it's about.
And I have copies of the rewriting for you when we get.
Well, let's start with the first one, 1112.
So, all right, I have a couple of different pieces to this. Number one, what you have is our 1112 series. So we have 1112, 1112.1, 1112.5, and 1112.6. Now, to begin with, in our audit, 1112.6 was supposed to be deleted, and it never was. So in our CABE audit, that was one of ours recommended for deletion because it was already covered. And it is repetitive when you look to the prior ones. Actually, this whole series is a little bit repetitive when you read through it because it repeats the same things, but in different ways.
So
However, they are mandated.
Can we make a motion just to remove that one then?
I'm happy. Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, so I make a motion to delete 1112.6.
My second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Woohoo.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you.
Sweet. So we can kick that off, and that also eliminates the appendix because that's a piece of that, which I don't think we want in there either. So that whole piece had a regulation, a policy, and that'll all just be gone. If you look at the CABE ones, there's some significant differences. Again, this is a first read, so the aspects, you know, the point of this is just to hand it out, have everybody be able to look, come up with questions you might have. and then look to vote on it for the next meeting. There's a couple of significant things that I think come into play. Number one, the idea that within our current policies, the only person who can provide access to students, events, and other things for media personnel is the superintendent. In the CABE policy, it's specified to administrators. So building administrators could allow media access to things. That would be a significant change for us because currently the only person with that power or ability is Troy. So consider that when you're looking at the new adjusted ones. Troy, I would be interested, and I think the board would be as a whole, in your perception of whether or not you believe that should stay within the superintendent's realm alone, or if that's acceptable as a process to move to administrators. The CABE core policy moves it to building administrators so that things that are specific to one building or another can just be handled there. The other thing that I guess I would just bring to people's attention to look at, because they were the things that stood out to me, sports, in terms of photography of sports, and videotaping of sports. I found it interesting because we have some very clear language stating that only specific news personnel affiliated with like certain groups are allowed to photograph anything, including sporting events. And yet we currently, I know, broadcast certain sporting events. We also, in the current climate, have a variety of different recruitment groups that I know use video footage and highlights, especially when it comes to trying to send things out to colleges and things like that.
Yeah.
And I guess I would just suggest that we take a look at that and try and figure out how to make sure that we're not taking opportunities away from students or creating situations in which students are accidentally breaking some piece of this policy if they're putting together their highlight tapes and things like that. I would be curious perhaps to look at some other schools and how they handle that and why it's written so specifically in the CABE policy versus others. And yeah, I guess those were my major things. R1112 also has a reg that's attached to it, which no matter what we do, I think we should remove that reg because there's no, again, we don't include that in our policy manual. But if you look at the 1112 at the back page of it, it's still 1112, but then it's a regulation. So that regulation should fall within our administration, not us. Questions before? I mean, I obviously come back next meeting with anything that you would have, or if you have questions in between. Again, Troy, I would be interested in what you have to say. I think, and as I said, I think the board as a whole would be interested in what you have to say regarding where you would like that line in terms of access. It does put a lot of the focus on parental, control regarding access to the media, but also puts the responsibility at times on the children, which threw me off a little bit at the elementary level. And I was curious about that in terms of wording, because it states things like, if parents do not want their student to be interviewed, they should instruct them not to be interviewed, but which works great for a high school kid, right? But if you've got a 6-year-old who has somebody talking to them and they don't understand that that's the process going on, that gets a little trickier. So
Do we have media interviewing 6-year-olds very often? Does that happen?
I don't, I have to be honest, I don't know if we have situations like, the building of the playground and things like that, where those were outside of the school time, but there were definitely media there who were interviewing and taking pictures. I know, my kids ended up in a couple of them, and it's considered technically a school activity. They weren't interviewed, right? But I don't know that it would apply very specifically, but it just, clarity of language I always think is great in these things. So
I remember they were put into a newspaper, the elementary kids or something, because my grandkids were in it too.
Oh, that's right. They also did it for the visit to the one-room schoolhouse when that happened. They had pictures. The visits to the library, they often end up
When they put the elementary school kids here for that year, they were out front on the first day of school getting pictures.
The Westerly Sun is probably the one that most consistently has images of our elementary school kids, but interviewing them, I don't.
And I guess that would go back to if your principal's allowing, if we've said the principal can do that and the principal's saying, yeah, come take pictures on the first day, that's not a problem, then that approval's been given. So,
Well, I wonder if the sporting events or anything outside, and that becomes a public space, right?
and that does, the policy does say public space is not
'Cause
a factor in the recording. There's a paragraph on
Okay, I'm like inside, a basketball game.
activities attended by the general public, including athletes and performing arts, permission shall not be required, shall not
Right.
generally be
Okay.
But it
required.
then also contradicts that in another spot where it states that sporting events and academic activities are both included within a space wherein news media would need to ask permission.
Well, the
So-
thing is, if you're in a public space, whether it's outside or inside at a game or a town meeting, so I'm going with, say, the town meeting, so this is a public space in here. If someone brings their child or if you're there, there's no expectation of privacy there. It's a right. It's a First Amendment right for media to be here. Or, and I think the same would hold true at a game outside. If the public is invited to attend, whether it's a game outside or inside of basketball in the,
And I
in
think,
the gym.
Chet, the discrepancy is if we're identifying a particular student at those events. That's where it's like, then you must get permission. If you're
So,
saying,
so if we look, I guess this one's not ours. It would be the CABE one that has the wording in it. But if you look under the 1112 section 2, where it says school administrators are authorized to grant, oh, no, sorry, number 3, where it says the media may interview and photograph students involved in instructional programs and school activities, including athletic events, if authorized by the principal. So I guess I don't,
If they're inside the classroom, that's not a public space. That's
but it says
inside
and school activities, including athletic events.
athletic events outside of school. Well, in school, but after school hours is a public space.
I don't know if they deem it that way, but I have never, and this is my experience having coached and having had numerous reporters on the sidelines. They're all over the place. I mean, up until a few years ago, they were even on the fields during the semifinals and finals taking pictures. So, I mean, I don't know.
that's for the sports page, right? That's what we read.
What's that?
I said, because we want to read the sports page, right? Get the highlights, all that.
Something
Yeah.
like that. So, I mean, I don't know if that's always been something that has just been kind of rubber stamped by school administrators, if that's in their policy.
Well, I also don't know because it actually specifies in one piece of this that athletes' parents can give yearly annual permission for that process, but it still has a permission required for that process, right? So if you have to, if you have the ability to give annual permission,
So,
then it implies that permission would be required.
so actually what the school and what most schools do is they have an opt-out clause and the parent has to opt out of this.
Well, and that's general videotaping and
This-
pictures. That's like all that whole aspect.
Right. So I think that would probably fall under here.
Yeah,
Or could potentially fall under here.
But then you run into and again, I don't know. I'm just saying like then you run into the issue of if you have one student who opted out of all photography and they're on the field with other students
Right.
and then a picture is taken, have you then contradicted the parents' wishes regarding that?
No.
I think
No,
if you
you can't.
checked with CABE, they,
Correct.
they do reference statutes a lot of times and they do have attorneys draw this stuff up. So if you wanted to ask them maybe for those specific clarifications, but I tend to trust a lot of times their language over maybe us interjecting our own
Oh, no,
language.
I very much do. I just am confused by it. Right. It's not that
Right.
I distrust the language, it's that the language states this, but I don't know if we're doing it.
I can give you an example of talking about when I was a Girl Scout leader again. I had one of the girls in my troop, parents did not want her photographed.
Mhm.
And so whatever we did, whatever project we were working on, I could take pictures of the kids, but I would always leave her out of it. But if we went to a place like, say, I don't know, see the Nutcracker at the Guard Theater, and there were pictures being taken, media came, we were walking in, whatever. I was then not responsible for that kid being photographed. Like it was in a big group. She was in the photograph. She's not by herself, mind you. I mean, she's not being photographed by herself, but she's in a photograph it was outside of my control, but we were in a public space. So it was different. You know what I'm saying?
And I guess it would just depend on what the definition exactly of public space becomes. So if there's a sporting event after school, is that always public space? So if public is allowed, then it becomes a public space. Again, I just don't know.
I mean,
we're
is it a
splitting
public space if you can bar someone from it? Because you can bar a parent from attending athletic events. You can bar a parent from stepping foot on campus.
Chet, you have somebody in the waiting room.
So that might be something worth a little bit of clarification moving forward. I don't disagree with you, but I think just for safety's sake, it's not bad to maybe make the ask and find out just to make sure.
And again, it's not distrusting the CAPE policy
Right.
process. It's making sure that if we're going to approve the CAPE policy process, because they are the ones following the statutes, to make sure that the way that we implement their policy in terms of our practice matches what it's supposed to match.
Within the spirit and the letter of what they put.
Chet, would you say that 1112.5 is the regulation that goes along with the CAPE policy 1112?
So now this is the other problem that comes into play, and it would require, it's why it's a first read.
It would have an R after if it was a
It's
reg.
not it's not a regulation. What they are different
Versions.
different versions of the way that they phrase things. And for us, 1112.5 actually specifies that it provides needed direction and guidance during our audit. Now, what's interesting is 1112.1, although recommended for retention, also states that it was only based on the current climate. And when it comes to videotaping of board meeting, like things like that, we record everything we do now.
All right.
And
And
so
just to clarify, the first one's on news media relationships.
But
And
the
the
new-
second one is about allowing media access to student so that we're making reasonable efforts to provide media access. So they are different. They are two
when
different
you,
things.
But when you look at the CABE version of it, they meld both of those into a singular policy, wherein like their 1112 is mostly actually focused on access to students. When you actually read through it, almost all of the language in it is focused on how to gain access to photographing and interviewing students, whereas our original one is more about how the board interacts with the media, whereas CABE has no policy in their core manual regarding the board's interaction with the media. So our 1112 is focused on us and the media and our meetings and access and other things like that much more. And the CABE version of their 1112 is much more focused on the idea of the overall news media relationships within the school system as a whole. So
Chet, if your request is that everyone looks over all of these, and then at the next meeting, we're gonna take a minute or several minutes to go through, everyone can come with their suggested language changes or concerns, and then we're going to hopefully find some common ground.
and I have to be at my recommendation and what I would like to see happen, I guess, is adopting the CABE 1112, 1112.5, and then 1112.6 minus the second portion, which is their regulation. So that would be having one that would regard videotaping students, one that would be media access to students, and one that's the overall news media relationship. Instead of, I feel like ours is repetitive in weird ways and a little bit redundant
So just to clarify, I think moving forward, we're always going to want to look at adopting the most recent version, which is CABE's version, which is a 2023 version, right? So
Yes.
to save us time and to try to get through these a little faster, trying to rehash what we did in 2007 doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, because there's going to be so many holes in it. There's going to be so many things that have changed regulation wise and everything, that when you bring forward the CABE ones, I'm just wondering if that's what we should be focusing on, is the new language in the CABE, and just doing away with ours, unless it's,
I have no problem with that. My concern was that originally when we had talked about this, the request that had been made was that we provided all of the different possible changes and recommendations. And so that's, I guess, what I've been trying to do. I think that in general, updating, I mean, we pay a lot of money, or not a lot, we pay money for the CABE service, and the idea that they're setting up a variety of new policies that match how things are changing. Everybody has access to our policy manual. If what makes the most sense moving forward is to show up with the new CABE versions and say, is there anything people disagree on with the new CABE versions, and otherwise we adopt them, I have no problem with that. I guess it would be up to the board to decide if they're comfortable not comparing policies and rather just seeing new ones.
Do we want to have some discussion about that?
I guess I'm of the opinion that I want to see the old one, just because I'm not super familiar.
I want to see the old one too.
Okay, yeah, but I kind of agree. I don't know if I need.
I don't need to rehash the old one though.
Well,
right.
Yeah, but maybe what I think, like you're saying, like it's so different, like the focus is different. I like your highlights. Like I took little notes of like what I should be focusing on. That's a lot of work on you, I know. But yeah, anyway, that's my opinion.
Like Chet said, they do give possible options for us to adopt that might fit our specific needs a little bit better than saying we'll just go with this one. And that's, I think you've been coming with multiple options for us to look at to figure out what makes the most sense for North Stonington and what really kind of speaks to what we as a board value and want for our schools, our students, our families. So I think having those options and talking about them a little bit, I think allows us to come to an understanding of why we think and what policy we think should be put into our version of the policy from CABE in order to best reflect our educational and philosophical values for this district.
So I think what I'm hearing is we want to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to continue to see both the old and the new policy so that we can see the differences. And if there's something like Chet, like you pointed out, there's a vast difference between our policy and the CABE policy here because the focus appears different. We could talk about that, but we don't have to try and rewrite our old policy to fit because it appears that CABE has done that.
Yeah, and especially if they're from
Okay.
07, there's always going to be vast differences.
Right.
They're so
And it
very
seems like we
old.
have a lot from 07. Okay.
We have most of it from 07.
So
but I again, I would say the big question here for the board and for Troy is the change from superintendent to administrator. Otherwise, not much of it changes. Although it looks vastly different, it doesn't change much in practice.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that change.
all right, so everyone take a look and we will vote on some new language next time. Thank you, Chet, for your prep work on that. Troy, do you want to talk about a 4111?
Yes, please. So I think in the last page of your packet, you have a document that looks like this. There's a chart on the bottom. Yes. Okay. So this is my suggested substitution of the regulation 4111. But there's actually kind of two of them. Okay. So the last one that was regulation approved, it says July 28th, 2021 is the one I'm looking to replace. It's
Can I ask? They're both regulations.
yeah.
We don't need to approve them, correct?
Well, I guess you really don't, but you did approve this one, July 28th, 2021.
But between then and now, we had voted to leave regulations, I believe, in the hands of,
Okay,
I-
That-
if I'm not
that's fine.
mistaken.
You are not mistaken. However, and Christine, you can chime in here. We specifically created this practice. While it ended up in a regulation, as a board, I think we were feeling like, things weren't always done in a consistent, uniform way. And sometimes we were included and sometimes we weren't, and we weren't really sure when we were going to be included. And so we defined that, and I think that's what you see. And you're right, now we don't do that, but I appreciate, Troy, you bringing it to our attention because it was very deliberate in 2021 on our part.
well, so, I mean, whether you vote to approve it or not, I think it's good. I think you had asked me to take a look at it and to rewrite it. So I wanted to follow through. So here it is. I took a 4-page document and I made it 2 pages. I simplified it. Instead of having all those little paragraphs on the second and third page, I made a chart with all the same information, pretty much the same information, except I said like may consist of more than these minimums. So if you want to have a student on a committee, you can, if you want to have 3 parents, you can, right? But these are the minimums, but these are the things that were in the paragraphs, which was very cumbersome to read all the paragraphs and figure out what you're supposed to do. So I think the chart makes it more user-friendly. Really, there was a lot of redundancies in the other parts of the language, and I think I kept the important things in there.
This regulation is absurd. Like,
Which
this
one?
is so extensive.
It
Yeah,
had
there's
to
4
be,
pages.
so it is extensive, but to defend it, there was some hiring practices that we weren't very comfortable with. So we dug in and got very extensive because we needed to. So I definitely appreciate streamlining it now, having Troy take a look at it and give us something that's maybe a more palatable piece of document, but there's a reason for it. I just don't want you to think that it's overkill. It had to be at the time. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot easier to figure out.
I was just scrolling through that reg going, oh, goodness.
And
This is.
that's why simplification was appropriate at this point in time. It was helpful to me to have guidance on hiring a whole new central office before I even started in some cases. And I like to follow the rules when I know what they are. So I didn't change the rules. I just simplified it and made it so it's a more user-friendly document.
Thank you, Troy. And I think given that it is a regulation, I don't believe we have to take any action on it, except to say, thanks for making it 2 pages.
No problem.
Yeah, that's great. And also just letting us know you've updated it and changed it, because you could have just done it and we wouldn't be any wiser. So appreciate that. And then are regs published in our policy manual though, correct? If there is one out there? Are they?
No, generally speaking, our regulations are in a separate,
Okay.
they're not, they're in they're in the policy manual, but not in our online policies.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you, Troy. This is really very
It's much-
efficient
it's
and
much
very,
easier.
very nice. Thank you.
So, Board of Ed comments for future agenda items. Do you mind if I just sort of go around the table so I can make sure that we get that for everyone? Brian, I'll start with you. You've got nothing. Okay. All right. Judy?
Yes, the street safety lights, the flashing 25 miles an hour. So I've been going back and forth on this for months since school started. They're still not working. I spoke with Bob Carlson. State DOT was contacted. They're actually town responsibility. We waited for the new IT guy to get hired. I talked to Quentin. Quentin checked the signs. The solar power batteries in one of them expired in 2009. The second sign, the battery expired in 2009, but the circuit panel is also broken. We can't get new parts. That one was discontinued about 15 years ago. So basically, we need new signs to be put up.
Thank you, Judy. Have you ever seen the movie Mallrats?
Yes.
You know, where the kids on the escalator, my kids are starting to act like that to me because
Yes.
every time we go in the morning, I'm like, "D- lights are not like it's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit.
And you
Right.
get
If you
tailgated,
don't
it-
have
it's-
'em going.
It's really tricky
So
there
I
in the
think what we
morning.
have to do is put this on the agenda and explore. Judy actually has some great information on costs. There've been some discussions with Bob Carlson. So we'll add it to the agenda. We could talk about cost and then different options. So what are different towns doing? How are they handling that?
Put it on the tripod.
We absolutely could put it on the tri-board agenda.
I constantly in my head keep referring back to the fact that Gary Barron stated to us that the biggest danger for our schools
Route
is
2.
having Route 2 directly out in front.
Yes.
And one of those dangers is the fact that people go flying by there. And right now the speed limit is 45 when our kids are getting off the buses.
Well, we did the holiday sale over here and all the kids were using the tunnel. And I'm watching the kids cross the street to the tunnel. I know they're, 6, 8 feet away from the road, but those cars flying by with all those kids it's nerve wracking.
Thank you for your attention to it, and we'll put it on our next agenda, but Christine, great idea to put it on the tri-board agenda as well. Future agenda items from you, Christine?
No, I just would like to see bylaws continue to come up for policy work, because we've been talking about that for a while.
So I did a brief look in our bylaws that talk about when we can change and update our bylaws, and it was a very quick look. But I think there are some different rules for us changing and updating our bylaws than our regular policy. Chet, do you have?
The vote is different. It
It's a
has to be
two-thirds
two-thirds as
vote.
opposed to a majority, but
But
it doesn't, in terms of actually changing them, to the best of my knowledge, I didn't see anything that would
Thought
stop
I
us
saw a
from doing so.
specific month in which we would address and change them. So I'm gonna look into that further, and if that is the case, that we could talk about it. If it's not the case, yeah, we started that work. We should keep
Right.
going.
I know it's a 2/3 vote in order to be able to do it. I
Right.
didn't see anything else different, but I may be mistaken on that.
Great, thank you. Lisa? Okay. Alex?
Not at this time, but just to echo Judy's comments, I think if you read the minutes of meeting, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, we had the same complaints and nothing happened. So thanks for bringing it up again.
Oh, that's some good history. Thanks, Alex. Jamie?
Always the playground.
Noted. Chet?
I would also just, yes, we need to talk about the lights and the school zone, but otherwise, no.
Great, thank you. Any public comments? We sure did. We sure did.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.